Hello, I'm Luke, and welcome to another episode of the Vision to Victory podcast, where we discuss practical ways to turn your dreams into reality. Last week, we talked on the topic of getting from here to there. How do we get from where we are to where we want to go in any area of our life? We touched on just kind of a few key points to that. And what I want to do today is break down one of those points because I think it's one of the most common obstacles to us getting where we want to go in life. And sometimes I think it's helpful to just focus on one thing, and if we can do that one thing better, it can have such an exponential impact on our life. So that's what I want to do today. But first, I just want to briefly recap kind of what those four key components are of how we get from here to there. The first was be honest with yourself. You have to be willing to be honest with yourself about where you're at, why you're at where you're at. For instance, if you're not where you want to be, let's say, again, I use this example often because it's simple, but let's say you're out of shape and you want to be in shape. Well, why are you out of shape? Like, what got you here? And what's keeping you here? And you got to just be really honest with yourself. This is not a make excuses. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a be honest with yourself about the things that you can control that you have not taken control of that'll keep you stuck. So you have to be willing to be honest with ourselves if we're going to make progress. And then we have to directly address whatever it is that we've identified, when we're being honest with ourselves. Okay, I've chosen to spend more time on social media when I could just maybe reduce or eliminate some of that social media, and then I would have enough time to exercise or, whatever the case might be. So got to be honest with ourselves and then directly address whatever it is that's holding you back, and then make a plan, even if it's bad, which it probably will be. You just have to, I've had to learn this in my own life, of letting go of perfection or getting things all figured out before you start. That's not a way to make progress. And so you be honest with yourself about what's holding you back. You directly address it. Then you make a plan to deal with it or to change, your habits or your thought process, whatever it is. And then you move forward, right? You move forward and you'll adapt and change the plan as you go. And then the last component, and this is what I want to talk about today, is do it anyway. Do it anyway. We touched on this last week where there are so many things or reasons that we come up with for not pursuing our goals, which, if you think about it, is kind of silly because these are our goals. We're talking about what we want for our own lives. Like, if I, Luke, want to, do X, Y, and Z, why would I come up with excuses to not pursue the thing that I want? That this is what I want for my life. And yet we do it anyway. And so I want to talk about how we can combat those tendencies. And really, honestly, it's less of a how, it's part of it, but it's a mindset that we can have that sets apart the greats at anything. People who do anything well have mastered this. And I think that you need to too, if you want to win in any area of your life. I certainly do as well. And so it's do it anyway. So again, be honest with yourself, directly address what's holding you back, make a plan, even if it's bad, and then do it anyway. So let's talk about this. Do it anyway. There's so many things that keep us from moving forward in life. And as I was pondering this and kind of how I wanted to unpack this, and I was thinking through kind of all of the things that often hold us back from pursuing our dreams, our goals, what it is that we want for our life. It was very difficult for me to come up with something that wouldn't fall in the excuses category. It's like every reason that I could come up with that has kept me from pursuing something at any time in my life, it's really just an excuse, because I could just as easily come up with a way to deal with that or get around it and, pursue my goal anyway. So I think maybe you would find the same, but nonetheless, I wanted to kind of talk through some of the reasons that we give or excuses, if you just want to be direct about it, that we give ourselves and or others for not pursuing our own goals. I actually think that number one is I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. So I'm not going to do it because I'm tired or whatever it is. The bottom line is we often do things because or we don't do things because they're uncomfortable or we just don't feel like it. Again, I think just exercise is maybe one of the most obvious examples of this. I joke about this often, but if I worked out when I felt like it, I would never work out. I would be obese, or I would work out very infrequently and would get little to no results. I don't consult my feelings. Being healthy is a priority for me, and I'm not led by my feelings. I'm led by my priorities. So priority, you could call it a goal. A goal implies a destination. A priority implies this is just a part of my life. It's not a destination. This is just how I do life. And if being healthy is important to me and I understand all the reasons why I want to be healthy, whether it's to spend time with my wife and kids and be able to do fun things and be able to take part in physical activity and just to feel good and look better, stay younger and healthier, all these things. I don't consult my feelings. I determine in advance that this is what I want for my life, and then I find a way to do it. And we are hardwired to default to comfortable. The problem is comfortable is very short-sighted and doesn't actually get us what we want. It doesn't get us anything worthwhile in life, And so we have to recognize that. And when you have that voice in you, again, so I get up in the morning, say it's early in the morning, I'm still tired and I need to get my workout in and I don't feel like I come up with a million reasons, and it happens in a split second of all the things I just could do instead of working out, or, I've worked out X amount of days in a row. Like I don't need to do it today. And really, I'm just making excuses because I simply don't feel like it. And for me, I don't feel like it is not an acceptable reason to not do something, particularly to not do something that is in service of one of my priorities. Again, I have the priority of being healthy, and I need to be willing to do the uncomfortable things that are required to be healthy. That's the way it works. So I don't feel like it. Excuse number one. Number two, I'm too busy. This is also extremely common. I've been guilty of saying this myself. And the truth is, this goes back to being honest with yourself, is that you make time for what's important to you. You make time for your priorities. And maybe you would want to push back on that and say, no, I really don't have time because I've got work and I've got this and I got that. And I would say, your time is a reflection of your priorities. And so it's not that you can't say these are my priorities and then spend your time on everything else. Then that's not really a priority. And I've said this before, but if you want to know what's important to you, look at how you spend your time, energy, and money. I promise it will give you a very clear indication of what's important to you. If you spend 4 hours a day on social media or video games or, whatever it is, then that is your priority. That is your priority. And one of the challenges is that we don't often think of things in these terms, meaning maybe we just go to scrolling on our phone out of habit. It's just what we do. I've been guilty of this myself. I'm just sitting on the couch and I just pick up my phone and scroll. Before I know it, it's been 20 minutes and I've done nothing worthwhile. I feel worse about my life and then I move on and, it's easy to do the exact same thing again later. Right. And so the too busy is just simply not a reasonable excuse, because the fact of the matter is that much of life is about making trades to make progress. So as your values and priorities change, then you need to make time for that. A great example in my own life is I in my younger years, I think about the decade of my 20s, I prioritized social, just hanging out. And, honestly, most of the time there was alcohol involved. And I spent so much time just doing that, just hanging out with friends, drinking. And I could have maybe told myself that I was getting some sort of value out of that. But the fact of the matter is that as my goals and priorities started to change, that no longer suited my life. Spending all that time, doing kind of not real connecting or productive activity, was just not in service. It would keep me from pursuing the goals and dreams and what I really want for my life. And, I found not only just the time spent on kind of those types of social activities, and then drinking is its own thing. I talked about this. I don't drink alcohol anymore simply because it gets in the way of the life that I want, to live. And so I am willing to make that trade. And so my point here is that you're not too busy. Maybe you just need to reevaluate what you're giving your time and energy to. And sometimes, by the way, we will have to take time and energy away from something good to do something better. So maybe maybe you've done a good job of this and you've got a bunch of good things in your space, but there's still a bunch of them. And maybe you've got a new thing that you want to pursue that would be better. You might have to take time and energy away, at least temporarily, from something else that's good. And that's totally good and okay. This is part of life. Life in changing seasons. We reevaluate our priorities, and it's just important that as our priorities and our values change, that so does our time and energy and where we spend it. And hopefully our habits do too. Where a lot of people find themselves in depression, we hear these terms, midlife crisis, where people realize that the things that they used to value, the priorities that they used to have, are not valuable, or they don't satisfy anymore. And so there's kind of that recognition of like, okay, I've been doing it the wrong way, and now I feel unsatisfied. And so maybe I've got an idea of some different goals or priorities, or maybe you don't have an idea of how to make the shift from, okay, how do I used to think that if I had a cool car and a nice house that I would be, happy or fulfilled. And then I get that stuff and I realize that's not the case. So now I know that, okay, maybe that's not the best priority, but what do I do now? And so the answer to that is that you get clear on your new priorities, get clear on, what gives purpose and meaning to life. And then again, to the depression piece and where people get stuck is they don't change the way they do life. Even if you recognize that, okay, this stuff doesn't satisfy, so now I know that, but it's a lot of work and requires intentionality to change habits and how you spend your time and energy. And people, when you don't make the shift to realign how you do life with the season that you're in, you will be depressed, you will be anxious, you'll be stressed, all these things, because there's cognitive dissonance. I've talked about this on here before, where it's like, I know that I should be doing this, or I would want to do this, but I'm doing something different. That creates this tension between us. And then, you get all those things, anxiety, depression, stress, all that. So again, excuses. I don't feel like it. I'm too busy. I don't know what to do is another big one. We've kind of touched on that already. Of just like, okay, I don't know where to go from here. Well, no, I totally get it. I understand this. I remember when I made the decision to start a business, I didn't even know where to start. Great news. We live in the world of technology. Pretty easy to get on the internet and figure out where to start for whatever it is you want to do. Very easy. Again, I don't know what to do. It's just an excuse. The truth is if it was something that you know, were excited about, you would find a way. You would figure out what step you can take now. Now, again, I've talked about this a lot, but I don't know what to do. Often, kind of a subversion of that or another iteration of that would be, it seems too much, too overwhelming, or too big a task. And I've learned in my own life that this one I don't necessarily articulate, because if I say it, it sounds weak. And so I maybe find a different way that's a little softer of like, there's a lot and it's kind of unclear. I don't know if it's a good use or whatever. And it's all crap. The truth is I'm just procrastinating, and that even if something does seem big, or maybe it is, again, maybe you decided you want to go back to school and that's going to take multiple years. There was a time in my life where that seemed like an eternity, and it seemed like, why would I spend my time now for something that's going to take so long? And take it from me, better off to just take the step today in the direction of what you want. Take the step today, do whatever you need to do to figure out what steps you can take on a daily basis to get to where you want to go. There's the last few here that I just want to bullet. You feel unmotivated. You're hung up on your past and still blaming other people and other situations for, why you are where you are. Or, again, unmotivated past, people, limiting beliefs. This is a big one. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not attractive enough. All these things. It's all just crap. They're just all excuses at the end of the day. Back to the title of this podcast is Do It Anyway. Do it anyway. I mean, maybe I could have saved you a lot of time from having to listen to this, but every single one of these excuses, I don't feel like it. Do it anyway. I'm too busy. Find time, do it anyway. I don't know what to do. Figure out what you can do. Do it anyway. I feel unmotivated. Do it anyway. Well, my past, do it anyway. They said, people said, whatever. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. If you want to be successful in any area of your life, you will have to master this. There's no such thing as being successful or winning or doing well in any area of life for any significant amount of time if you're not willing to do it in spite of all of the excuses. I've said this quote on here a bunch of times, and I'll say it again. Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. If you work out when you feel like it, you will not be healthy. If you do it consistently, even when you don't feel like it, you will get strong. I'll end with this. This is a quote from Kobe Bryant, who was notorious for his work ethic. Not only was he an exceptional basketball player, but he was a shining example of mental toughness. And I love this quote from him because maybe it'll make you put you at ease a little bit, that somebody who was at the top of their craft said this. He said, I have self-doubt. I have insecurity. I have fear of failure. I have nights when I show up at the arena and I'm like, my back hurts, my feet hurt, my knees hurt. I don't have it. I just want to chill. We all have self-doubt. You don't deny it. You also don't capitulate to it. You embrace it. In other words, Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players of all time, He had the same doubts and the same insecurities that you and I have. He had the same fear of failure. He had the same aches and pains. He had the same, I don't feel like it, I just want to chill. But you don't capitulate to it. You don't surrender to it. You don't give into it. You embrace it. Use it as fuel for, okay, this is what makes me different. And this is my own self-talk, by the way, that I've adapted after doing it the wrong way for a long time. And it's this, is anytime I have those voices in my head that tell me, you don't have to do this, or you can't, or, oh, it's okay to just not take it off, whatever it is. I remind myself who I am and who I choose to be. And what makes me different, this is what I tell myself, is what makes me different is that I'll do it right now, even when I don't feel like it. Because successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. And my feelings don't get a say in what I do and don't do. They don't get a say in my priorities. My priorities are based on my values, and I'm going to spend my time and energy on the things that matter to me, whether I feel like it or not. I hope this was helpful for you. Please like, share, subscribe to somebody. And I hope today that when you have those voices of doubt and insecurity and fear and whatever it is, making excuses in your head, stand up to yourself and do it anyway. Talk to you next week.